All right, here we go. Here we are today. You got John Stewart, partner at Armanino, national co-leader of our family office industry. And with me today is the esteemed Angela Trindle, CFO of Ballmer Enterprises. Angela, why don't you say hi and give a little intro about yourself?
Great. Thanks for having me, John. As John mentioned, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Ballmer Enterprises. We support Steve and Connie Ballmer comprehensively across their personal, philanthropic, and business enterprises. As many people know, Steve Ballmer is the prior CEO of Microsoft. So we're a very tech-focused organization, and we are really striving to be best in class in finance and technology across not only family office enterprises, but also arena and team. So we have a really big charter with the LA Clippers professional basketball team and world-class arenas in Los Angeles.
I may have heard of those. Yeah,
Well, we hope you spend a lot of time at both, John.
Yes, yeah, I do. Well, I'm a huge fan of that arena. I think it's the world's most technologically advanced arena at the moment. It's a beautiful place.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think today we're going to cover a couple topics, mix and match it up. But you mentioned technology, you want to be at the front of it. And this is partly why you and I speak so much, right? Because we both have that affinity for, hey, there's so much emerging technology in the family office space, and being out in front of it is posing a lot of advantages if you get in front of it now and learn how to use it, right? And I know you guys have always been on the forefront of that. So why don't we start with technology trends then, and what you're seeing, what's trending up for you in your world, and what you want to see kind of movement towards, and maybe what you're moving away from as well.
Yeah, I mean, the moving away from, I'll start there, which is like a lot of family offices, we've used some legacy platforms that are quite frankly going end of life, or we're just not seeing the functionality there that really supports efficiencies.
Yep.
And so we're moving the last of our enterprises off of Microsoft Great Plains. It's been a long journey with us, with our founder being the prior CEO of Microsoft, we tend to
kind of a big deal
preference towards Microsoft products. And so getting on to the latest and greatest for us, we did evaluate other softwares, but getting onto Microsoft Dynamics 365 has been a multi-year journey for us across more than 20 companies. And so that's been
kind of a lot of entities that have to utilize this, and you're keying
Mm-hmm.
on a special aspect too, which is the tech isn't really just for the family office, is it? It's actually more pervasive than that.
Yeah, and for us, where the technology is really interesting is getting on a system that we can really future-proof and set ourselves up to use more AI enablement, get smarter workflows, get more leverage across these 20 plus entities that we run and manage. And so we're looking for smart tools and systems. And so as we've shifted off of these really legacy, on-premise products into, smart cloud products, we're looking for things that will grow with us and enable the new technology solutions that are there. Some of it will be embedded in the software that we buy, and others will work with super smart people like John and his team to help.
Give the team credit. I'm just around, but yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
But to help us shorten that development curve, because sometimes we want to get ahead of where the product is going to be. Yep. And so that's where your team really helps us accelerate our transformation.
I think I love that part too, right? It's getting ahead of where the product's going to be. Right, that old adage of skate to where the puck's going. I think there was a Gretzky quote way back in the day, and I think it still lands. Yeah, it still lands today. We'll keep it in the sports arena.
I'm gonna say, give us basketball. Come on.
Yeah, you got basketball. We got to do something with basketball. Yeah,
find where the ball's gonna land.
Yeah, where the ball's gonna go. Yeah, something like that. And I think that's I think the old thought on family offices. Oh, you're managing a high net worth client's wealth, but I don't really see that as the proper definition anymore. And I know you don't.
No. I certainly don't. I mean, I think each family office is super unique, and some have a lot more, I would say, needs on the personal side. Maybe you have multiple people within the family, and so you're spending a lot of time allocating or catering to one need or another. In our case, our family is relatively low touch, and so we spend a lot more time on driving scale across very different things, whether it be our USA Fax group, which is really active this year, with it being an election year. Our philanthropy group is now, spending more than $1 billion a year in grants each year, and then our professional basketball team and entertainment groups. So we're really doing a lot of different things. And I know some family offices are as well. And just being able to have your technology and tools flexible and not so rigid to support one thing has been really important for us.
Yeah, I think that flexibility is key. And I think that's what we're seeing now in the tech ecosystem, right? That tools are entering that work well together, that can scale, that can be switched in and out, that have multi-purpose and multi-use, because it isn't just this narrow band anymore, right? Yeah. And you're right, there's a whole ton of family offices still operate that way today, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
There's this very large percentage now of groups that do not operate like that anymore.
That's right.
And are more like, actually function more like a modern day private equity firm in a lot of ways.
That's right.
Right? Like, and kind of, but just with a lot more control in a way, because you don't need all the outside investment. So, and I think it's been interesting to watch, particularly Ballmer's approach to it, because I think it has been a mix of, hey, he's doing a lot of philanthropic stuff, and he's doing a lot of stuff to help good in the world and push. USA Facts is a fascinating one, right? And he did great on my Daily Show. I look very different on that show, very different. But
That was an awesome interview.
it was. Thank you. Yeah, I did all the makeup and hair. I mean, I look very different, but no, I love that approach. It just kind of speaks to the expansive approach and how wealth owners are approaching the space differently now and the markets differently.
For
So,
sure.
so okay, so that's the tech piece, and I want to come back to AI in a second, but since we're talking about how they're approaching things differently, interest rates, right? That's the topic right now. It's come down. The Fed's made their half point cut, and maybe we get another one in the year, maybe we don't. Who knows? How does that impact some of the decision making around technology and going after new things? Is it a large impact for the family office right now, or is it hey, we're in a wait and see approach, or does it even have an impact?
I think it really depends on the office, John. I mean, we tend to have an approach of, not going out and taking on a lot of debt. For us, debt is a short-term thing, outside of some very specific, topic points. But in general, for us, it doesn't have as big of an impact as it probably would for another family office that might be more highly leveraged. And so this isn't probably the topic area that I'll be quite as articulate on or expansive on. But I mean, of course, I think it's important. And I think as those rates go down, I think you'll see a lot more capital opening up in the market and a lot more people having stronger appetite to do things. And hopefully more great opportunities coming to the table, because I know that the interest rate market has certainly slowed things down. As you mentioned, a lot of us operate like private equity firms. I think that market has slowed a bit as the interest rates have ratcheted up, and certainly excited to see them come back down and see the markets get exciting again. I think there's been some great opportunities in the market, but it's weeded out a fair number of, I would call it more organic things that have had some better legs in earlier, younger markets, and now they're sort of, the barrier to entry is getting higher, unfortunately. So I think we've had good quality opportunities, but I'd love to see, I think it sort of discourages a little bit more of that grassroots investing, and we're excited to see a little bit more of that come up.
No, I agree. That's what I was curious if that's how you guys looked at it, because I think as those come down, there's other factors too, I know, but it is going after I think, newer opportunities, and you guys have always been forward in that anyway.
Yeah.
But I could imagine other family offices may not have that approach, right? They may look at it differently, right? It does come down to each office and how they look at it, and that old adage of if you've met one family office, you met one family office.
That's very true.
It's so true, right? People say, and you're like, is that true? You're like, no, it is true. It's totally true. There's a reason it became an adage, right? But okay, so let's shift back to AI, because that goes back into being able to do more. Let's say those capital markets open, more people are going to want to try these things. Can you walk us through what your approach has been with AI and automation tools, and kind of where you see it going, maybe, or where your interests lie in that space?
Well, very interested in the space. We actually have a fair number of our internal resources where I've got 3 or 4 people on the team that this is part of their goals. It's in their top 3 priorities for the year. So part of their charter is to explore, investigate, and really figure out what's viable and actually going to drive some real, let's call it productivity gains. That's where we focus the most in finance and accounting, because those are quantifiable.
Right. Yeah, well,
they actually drive a benefit.
You can't manage what you don't measure. I still believe in that, and I think that speaks to that. Yeah.
So we generally, explore what's out on the market today, particularly, what Microsoft is doing, given, we've got a financial interest in that company in particular, but more broadly as well. And so, like I said, we'll test it. I've got people on my team that they'll spend X number of hours every week doing that. We have a budget to go explore AI technologies and implement some within our firm. What we're looking for ranges. I would say, if anybody's played with Copilot or ChatGPT, there's low-hanging fruit. Like we use it for things like accounting policies, because documentation is always the thing that people struggle with and hate, and job descriptions. Those are already completely AI generated in our organization. Or when I say completely, mostly completely. It does the heavy
lift. That as a daily impact on your way of working too? Has it like reached into the CFO suite? Or are you
Oh yeah, I use it for a lot of those administrative type of things. Now you still have to read it and look at it, and I've talked about this with other family office forums, in that AI is really going to do a certain percentage of the work. It's never going to be 100%. You
Yeah,
still
everybody thinks 100. It's not, right? It's like
no.
70 to 80%. You're going from management by rule to management by exception, right?
Exactly.
That's what you're saying? Yeah, got it.
So you can review it, give it the blessing, send it off into the world, but you don't want to send it off without actually reviewing it and making sure it represents you properly.
Right.
Things like the bills, in our organization, that's probably the most thankless piece of what we do in finance and accounting, but it takes up just a huge amount of resources.
Right now, AP cycle, I mean, you got to pay the bills. That's how everything gets done, right? You got to do
That's
it.
right.
Everybody's got to do it, right? Yeah.
So taking down that burden and making it to where the staff that I have internally can work on higher value workloads and manage the customer and vendor relationships more so than collecting, basic information and entering things into systems and cross-checking. Like those are things where we've got low-grade AI available in the market, and I know your team can do some cool things to help improve that. Yeah. But I think that there's a lot of next steps to that I'm excited to see come onto the market in a more commercial way.
Same here, because I think what we're seeing is, there's some off-the-shelf stuff you can use, right? Yeah. And it does work. It's effective, but it's like to your point, it's not all the way out there yet. It still leaves a lot more to look at. And then, then we got to come over top and add some other custom pieces to kind of round that out. But I'd agree. I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see that kind of really shift a different way where those products are going to continue to be enhanced as they're learning kind of take over, I would imagine. And so that then we're able to really plug and play some of these tools in a much easier way. Right now is, this is a little, you got to do a little hand holding at the beginning there.
Yeah, it saves us a little bit of time today, but to your point, like I'm really excited to see it take the next step. And I know there's a lot in works on that, but get to market. I'm ready.
Yeah, I know. Hey, we're working on it. We got an AI lab here. These guys are coding up left and right. I was checking in on them this week. They're onto some cool stuff. I'm not going to put it out here, but you and I can whisper on the side later about it. But
excited to hear that whisper.
Yeah, but I agree. This stuff's coming. This is just the beginning. And for people to think it's just a fad, it's not a fad. It's already been there for years, right? What do you think Siri is? Right? Siri is AI. It just was in a very light context, right? If you use that as an example, and it's evolving much faster and broader than that. Do you think? And I know this is kind of like we're fear mongering now. Do you see it taking people's jobs? And I'm setting you up because I think we both probably have the same view on this, but.
I think the organization size I have right now, it's not going to impact negatively. I don't think it will. I think I'll be able to control the growth instead of continuing to add with a bunch of net new. So I think if I was going to need 5 people in the future, I won't need 5 people in the future if the tools and AI improve at the rate that they could.
Yeah.
I might need 1, I might need none, but I don't think I'm going to need negative.
Right. No, I agree with you on that. I think it's going to be very similar to how we saw, I mean, this is a big leap, but if you think about how the personal computer came into the space in the, let's say, 80s, and more so prolifically through the 90s, but, people are like, oh, it's going to take jobs. It didn't take jobs. It made our jobs different and more efficient.
That's right.
It changed the nature of jobs, right? You didn't need to write everything down anymore, right? So, like, you didn't have people typing on typewriters. Like, things changed. It didn't mean the jobs weren't still there. And that's how I see this no different than the cell phone, the internet, personal computer. AI isn't kind of in those big leap categories to me of like, I think what I heard, and I don't remember where I heard this, so it's not me that made this up, but I'm curious your impression. So it's not, AI is not going to take jobs, but someone who understands it will. And I think that's more the point is that as we're learning what these tools can do, the executives and individuals that learn how to harness it are the ones that are going to find more opportunities, essentially.
I think it's not just the executives. I think, one of the things that I see when I talk to other family offices and other, small, mid-sized business leaders is there's a real shortage of people within an internal organization that can connect the dots between what management and the business need and what tool delivers that most effectively and how to manage that transition. Because quite frankly, I mean, if I had to say the biggest issue with deploying a new technology solution is that barrier to entry and that time commitment and complexity of getting from one system to the next and then having it actually work the way you want it to. And so I think those people will be in hot demand that can actually help navigate that, whether it's, a longer term contract employee or whether it's an internal or whether it's a purely type of function. But I think they really are the connective tissue and glue that helps kind of make this reality, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those are where we're going to see the changes occur, and it's exciting. It's exciting. It's just another new tool in the market that is going to hopefully enhance our lives in a really positive way. I'm sure there can be other nefarious things, but we're not going to go there. But yeah, in our world, a positive thing.
Data governance is an important factor. Yes.
Yeah, you can't let go of that. I agree. Like that is, no matter what changes occur, right? That's still going to be important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can go deeper into that in another time. But okay, thank you for covering AI and kind of new trends you're seeing and where you want to go. Let's shift it a little bit now because you've been leading in this space for a long time. You know how the family office industry works. Let's talk about leadership and what you're learning through, particularly now the past couple of years, going back to what 2020. I would say we've got volatility and uncertainty are pretty clear.
A little bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
just a tiny bit. And so, what have you like? If you're looking back on it, it's been 4 years of us going through this, right? What are some of those leadership lessons you've learned, and how you tackled that volatility and uncertainty?
Since we all have so many COVID examples that we shake a stick at them, I'll try not to use one of those.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because they're hopefully not going to repeat. One of the big things that we've done on our team a lot, which you're very familiar with, John, is we have had a migration of where work happens and what systems we're using to have that work happen. And for us, it's been a bit of a merging of two teams. So I have my family office group, but we also have a sister organization in LA. And throughout this last year, we've kind of reallocated where work is going to happen, and the family office has taken on the back office accounting and financial systems infrastructure. And I think, with that kind of change where workloads are picked up and shifted, people have a lot of job security and what does this mean for me, and how do I get what I need if this person doesn't report to me, and those kind of dynamics. And so, as a leader across, a sister organization and my direct organization, I think transparency and pulling everybody together, in a really deliberate way, and just being as open book and open to the questions as possible is always kind of my direct and immediate, approach. I think if you can tell somebody something, you should. Don't hold it back. If you can't tell them, but don't lie, right? Like that's
right, but don't lie either, because the trust matters, right? You're still building trust here. It's not,
and that's literally the most important thing, both, managing up, down, sideways, backwards, forwards, is people need to trust you. And if they trust you in your ability to lead them, uncertainty or not uncertainty, you're going to be fine. But I think once you lose that trust, like, good luck. It's a really delicate,
really hard to build that back again. So that speaks also to culture. Do you find you're dealing with two different cultures and you've got to blend that? Okay, let's just speak to that. How have you managed that? Because you got to build bridges there, right? And so, how have you approached that?
I think the main thing is to not expect anything day one, right? I shouldn't say not to expect anything, not to expect everything to be perfect day one. One of the things I learned, this is kind of a random story, but
Sure.
I was working and through my way through college, I started at the factory in Boeing Airplane Group.
Okay.
And they said to me on day one, you're going to want to make changes. You're going to want to come in here and make a big splash. Everybody does. And the first thing you should do is take a minute and see why it's done the way it's done. Right. And that little life lesson has stuck with me from, the late 90s. And so I think from when you're trying to change a culture, it's really important to understand the underlying dynamics and the whys.
Yeah, the why. Exactly. Why? Why are they there? Why do they do this? Right.
Yeah. Don't be a bull in a china shop when it comes to trying to change a culture within an organization. It will evolve and you can influence that significantly. But I think building that trust first and being able to get people to see a better way rather than telling them there's a better way and jamming it down their throats, it's been a really effective tool for me. And like I said, I invested time. Like I don't think that people will trust you and want to change to your way of thinking if you're not willing to roll up your sleeves and kind of get in the trenches with them a little bit.
Yeah, because like what you'll hear from outsiders, what I'll often hear, and I know you don't agree with this, is, well, they're owned by the wealth owner. They just have to do what he says. That's not how this works. Just because it's a family office backing it or a wealth owner, like that doesn't mean all of a sudden the cultures don't matter. You're talking about the Clippers. It's a large organization that does something very different. It has its own culture. And to your point, you have to take that into account, right?
Well, not only take it into account, but you have to retain the best parts of it, which is super important. So yes, we're we're going to be on a long journey in terms of melding our two groups, but I'm super proud of the work that we've done to date, and just the great quality on both sides of our organization. I think we've been able to do a really fantastic job of bringing everybody together.
I think so too, and I think, I mean, this is probably obvious, but I think the Intuit Dome itself is a great example of Ballmer Enterprises culture melding well with the LA Clipper culture.
Thank you,
Because
John.
I think it is, right? It not only visually in design, because it's very pretty, but also just an experience, right? Because it has that very tech forward approach, and it's a very different way of having experience in arena. But I don't want to give anything away. I think people should go. I think people should go and check it out themselves.
Everybody should check it out.
Everybody should check it out multiple times, all the time, every week. And be part of the wall. Be part of the wall. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google that. The wall. You need to be part of it.
You can only be part of the wall if you're a diehard Clippers fan, though, John.
Yeah, you got to register. You got to be part of it. I agree. I know my gear. I know today's the Armanino gear. Next time it's the Clipper gear, so it's fine.
Amazing. I love it.
And all my Philadelphia family seeing this is going to be really upset about that. But that's fine. but I think it does. I think what my experiencing being in that arena is like you kind of get the imprint on both, and then you also feel the excitement. Like you can see the excitement of the staff working the building. You can see it. They're excited that this is their new home, that this is all new and different and feels different, and they're excited to welcome you in. Lots of smiles, and I don't know, you can go to some arenas and not see that. So I do think that's a great example of how that kind of is blended together.
Well, thank you. It was a labor of
nailing it. Would you tweak that? What do you think?
No, I mean, Intuit Dome was a labor of love for us that lasted many, many years. It really came together in a way that we're super proud of, and I love to see that you see that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, of course. No, I'm a big fan. So, all right. So we're getting to the end here. Let's summarize this with just anything overall trends you're seeing, not only just in the family office space, but anything you're just dealing with and you want to mention.
I think it's an interesting workforce dynamic right now. I'm stationed in Washington State, which, if you haven't heard already, Amazon is announcing January 1, everybody needs to come back in the office 5 days a week. And I
saw something about that. Yep.
There's a little bit of angst around that. And so I think that's one of the things, that I worry a bit about and going forward is, what are we going to see from an evolving, workplace dynamic and attracting talent long-term, both within, the Pacific Northwest as well as LA. That could be a whole nother podcast. So
I think it probably could.
I won't get into that, but that is
we'll put that on the schedule for later. I agree. Yeah, yeah, because return to work is not going away. We're going to keep talking about this. And there's no one way to look at it. It's a very mixed situation, very mixed, entangled situation.
Very different opinions on either side of it. And so that's on my mind. That's where I'm seeing a lot of chatter outside of the technology space, but we'll talk more again.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, Angela, I want to thank you again for coming on here today with me. It's the inaugural version of me doing this, so this is cool. Thank you for being the first guest for me. And yeah, we'll have another one where we'll go into this a little more deeper, return to work or anything else that comes up. But
thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time today, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.